Okay. Okay, good. Awesome. So thank you so much for showing up today. Again, my name is Marc Kohler, and I'm the president of Lead with Purpose. And we help people lead more purposeful lives. And the way we do that is we give business owners the tools they need to get everyone on the same page, really passionate about what they're doing, and focus on the most important things. And so this morning we're going to spend some time. I'm going to take you through the story of Lead with Purpose, and I think it lay the groundwork for how we came up with the best tools and best practices. And my goal for you is that when you leave today, you're going to be able to take some of these and implement them immediately, not only in your business, but also as quote unquote leader of your family. I have 3 daughters and a wife, and so if they were here, I have no leadership in my family. But so you can take these back to your business, to your family, if you're coaching a youth soccer team, etc. So good. So, there's a quote on the screen right now, and it's an African proverb, and I think it
I didn't follow up with that.
Really sets the stage. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And look, I'm not saying that leaders of companies or big businesses don't need to go fast sometimes and go out ahead. But if you go too far out ahead, right, you're going to lose everyone. And the important thing is, how do we get everyone working on a team, and how do we get them to reach their full potential, right? So it's the one-page business plan. And thank you so much for the Chamber for putting on this event. Thank you so much for dedicating your time this morning on a Friday. And I really appreciate it. I'm super excited to be here and share with you some of my experiences. So it's all about stories right now, and I'm going to share with you why. But the companies where I've been a part of that have been the most successful are really the companies where everyone understands the big picture difference that you make in the world, but then they also understand what their specific role is in making that story come true. And a story is something that has a beginning and it has an end, and there's characters in the story. So I'm going to share with you the Lead with Purpose story. It was probably about 9 years ago in 2005 when I started my own one-man consulting firm, and I'd come from big businesses, right? So I started my own one-man consulting firm, and everything I thought I knew about leadership got turned upside down. So I get my first opportunity. It's about a 50-person company. The CEO is bringing me in. I'm going to be the chief operating officer for about 6 months, and I'm going to put some processes and procedures in place. The company's wobbling operationally and financially. And one thing to share with you, the company had grown from 20 employees to 50 employees over a 5-year period. So pretty big growth, right? And so I'm there and I'm asking a lot of questions, as a good consultant does. And one of the questions I ask is, how's your management team? Can you rate your management team for me? And the CEO, is standing there and he says, well, they're sort of mediocre. And I'm like, well, would you ever think about changing them out? And he says, you know what? Lisa's my VP of sales, and she's been here for 14 years. And when the servers were going to go down 8 years ago, she stayed overnight, right? And so he's bringing up all these reasons why not to change out people. I said, well, what about Bill? And he says, well, Bill's my brother-in-law. Thanksgivings are going to be tough, right? Right? We're all in these situations, right? And so he says to me, hey, can you try to make it work with the existing crew? And I said, great. Another question that I asked him, I said, hey, where's your strategic plan? Right? And he says, hey, we don't have one. And I'm thinking in my head, okay, mediocre team, no plan, right? Okay, this is what I got to try to fix. And I want to share with you, when I went into the company, I was trying to figure out how could I make the biggest impact. And so what really mattered most? And I'm going to share with you in 2005 what mattered most for me. First, I always thought, hey, get the best people in the world. Get the most talented people and bring them into the company, have them part of a team, right? That was number one. Number two was have a product that people are willing to pay money for, right? Have a great product. Number three was productivity. You had to be really efficient at what you were doing. So you had to have processes and procedures in place, and we had to have the best technology, right? And then the fourth And the inescapable fact of business is what? You got to make a profit, right? So when I went into this first company, I was looking at these 4 areas, and what I was looking at was saying, if I can help raise the levels in each one of these 4 areas, then I'm going to turn the company back over in a better position, right? So in this first company that I go into, they don't have, the management team is mediocre, and they don't have a plan. So I take them through the first 6 weeks, we go through strategic planning. And what you have to remember is that Honeywell had sent me to school for 2 months on how to facilitate strategic planning. So I did it first class. Harvard Business Review articles. We read Good to Great before we got in the room. We spent a week off-site. We were in a room like this, big table. There were easel pads all over the place. There was little slinky toys in the center of the, well, you guys are all laughing because you've been a part of these, right? And at the end, everyone feels like really jazzed and upbeat. And we leave there, and we put a binder together. There's 32 pages in the binder, and we get back to the office. And the management team is to share the contents of the plan with their employees. And they're all happy. I'm all happy, right? Well, we start having weekly management meetings. And in the weekly management meetings, I'm asking the team, hey, what's the mission of the company? Right? And they're stumbling through it. Hey, what are the values? Right? They're stumbling through that. And I'm really patient at first as they're trying to learn this. And I say, hey, they're gonna get it, right? Well, after 6 weeks, they're not getting it. And I'm sitting there going like, wow, we left on Friday of that week so jazzed and upbeat, right? And that weekend, I actually go home and I start reviewing the plan. And I'm looking at it. And to me, it's a masterpiece, right? And I look at it and I say, hey, look, this is the mission statement. The mission statement, the reason you exist, the difference you make in the world, right? This is inspiring, and I'm reading this, right? We are dedicated to winning the hearts of our customers by nurturing long-term relationships with large businesses and providing the best service, which is supported by industry professionals who use the latest technology and processes, resulting in total satisfaction, highest quality, and the highest returns for employees and shareholders. How can this not be so inspiring, right? And what you have to understand is this is the way business was done, and this is what I was taught needed to be put together. And you know when you get something like this is in the 4th hour, right? And everyone wants to put their input in. And on the end of this 4th hour is a happy hour when you're away with your team for a week, right? So everyone just goes, yeah, that's the best mission statement, right? Let's adopt that. So I decide during the next management meeting, if I don't see they're really getting it, I'm going to start asking them some additional questions. So we go in, what's the mission statement? Fumble through this, right? And finally, I just sort of stop and I say, hey, look, we spent a lot of time putting this together. You put a lot of effort and energy into this, and so what's really going on? And they're sort of sheepishly looking at me, right? And Lisa, who's my best manager, I'll remember this very vividly. She raises her hand, and she says, Mark, she says, I had a great time with you doing that strategic planning. We had a ton of fun, right? We had these team dinners. We were falling back into each other's arms to demonstrate trust. I learned a lot about strategic planning, right? And she asked me this laser-focused question. She says to me, and she did it, I think she did it for effect. She had her hand raised, and she put her hand on the binder, which for me was quote-unquote the Bible, right? The binder, right? And she asked me this laser-focused question. She goes, I'm back at work right now. How is this helping me to run the business? And I got to tell you, there was that much silence in the room as every other manager looked at me to go like, oh my, what's Mark going to do? Right? And in my head, all the training from Honeywell came back that says if anyone questions this, you have to say that the mission statement is connected to the vision statement, it's connected to the core competencies. And luckily, none of that comes out of my mouth, right? So instead, I did something smart, and I asked them a question back, the rest of the team. What do you think about it, right? And so since Lisa had sort of opened the door, right, everyone else started running through. And I think the one response really summed it up best is when one of the gentlemen said, Mark, you know what, this feels like a never-ending homework assignment to me, right? And for me, that was eye-opening. So what I could see was that was on the 32 pages wasn't really being assimilated into their hearts and into their minds. Even though I could understand what was on page 31 and how it related to page 19, if this thing changed, I could go to page 2. They couldn't, right? But I'd gone to 8 weeks of school of how to figure this thing out. So I went home that weekend, and I promised the team, I said, hey, look, let me do this. Let me create an executive summary for you. Right? I'll go over the weekend, create an executive summary for you, and bring it to you next week. And I started doing some research, and here's what I found, which are some interesting statistics, is I found this Harvard Business Review study that said that 95% of the people in a company don't understand how what they do on a day-to-day basis, how it contributes to the long-term success of the company. And we use the ladder as really like a metaphor. And if you put your strategic plan at the top and you talk about when I talk about strategic plan, and I'll take you through the components of it, I talk about your vision, I talk about your mission, I talk about the values that are important to your culture, right? These are things that are really heartfelt things and you connect with people emotionally on. If you put that at the top of the ladder and you put people's day-to-day activities, and we use the symbol of a check mark for day-to-day activities that have to do with plans and logistics, etc., people are struggling to understand what the other rungs are in between there, and there's really a disconnect, right? So that was one study that I found. Here's a second study, or what I did is I took and I put that on the 50-person company that I was on, and that meant that 3 people, 5%, 3 people understood how what they did connected to the long term. Right? For me, that was eye-opening. I was like, wow. Second one is, are you familiar with the Gallup employee engagement studies that are done? So every 2 years, Gallup does a worldwide study, and I'm going to show you the results for U.S. companies. They do a worldwide study, and they ask questions about how engaged employees are. How do do you feel you're engaged? How happy are you at your job? And these are the statistics from 2013. Now, the statistics from 9 years ago were very similar, okay? And I'm not saying this is your company, but this might open your eyes as you look at people in your business. 20% of the U.S. workforce is miserable. They don't like their job. They hate their job. They'll tell other people they don't like their job, right? They're actively looking for another job. 50%, another 50% is apathetic, right? They show up at 8 o'clock in the morning. They leave at 4 o'clock no matter what. They do what is minimally necessary to get the job done. They don't really go above and beyond. And then only 30% are inspired, right? For me, this is, I don't get this. And it's maybe because I'm doing what I love right now, and I'm really passionate about what I do. I mean, I don't need an alarm clock to wake up in the morning, right? I wake up this morning, hey, I get to talk to some people and share with them some ideas about Lead with Purpose. I'm excited, ready to go. So if you take that and look at it, would you bet money on this crew? Right? But this is what the average American business is right now. 2 people are rowing in the wrong direction. 5 people are on the boat, and they're just sort of, they're like, hey, I wonder what it looks like if how the water comes off, the paddle. I wonder what that looks like. Sometimes they're rowing, and only 3 people are rowing hard, right? And for me, I don't get this. When I talk to business owners all over the United States, what I ask them is, what's your most important asset? And they always say my people are the most important asset, right? But I don't think as leaders we're doing a good enough job, because those 2 studies show that, the 95% that don't understand, I think is contributing to these crazy engagement statistics, right? So this is interesting. One other thing is, what do you think happens if you don't do anything to those 3 people in the boat that are really rowing hard? Burn out, or they go where?
Somewhere else.
They go to another boat, and it's not your boat, right? So as we continue the story, I basically I come back and I get this thing down to 7 pages. And you have to understand, I'm a strategic planning artist. So imagine me sitting there on the weekend. It's 32 pages, and as I pull pages out, I'm crying. Like they're never going to get by without the competitive analysis and all this type of stuff, right? So I get it down to 7 pages, and I'm sort of going like, oh my gosh, I got to present this. It's not going to work, etc. And I shorten a bunch of things too. The mission statement I shortened to this: capture our consumer's heart, right? And I present the 7-page executive summary to the team the next week. And guess what? The exact opposite happens of what I thought would happen. Instead of them going like, hey, I can't really get by with this, they start asking me questions. Okay, oh, I see that, right? I see how it connects, right? I actually see them start having conversations with employees, right? And over the next 4 months, the same team that was mediocre and didn't have a plan had a plan and became excellent and turned that company around. Very profitable company even to this day, right? But it was the same exact group of people, right? And there's a lot of turnaround CEOs that go into businesses and guess what they do? They wipe house, right? And they bring in their own crew, right? I was really stymied by the first thing that makes a company great. Have the best people, right? Since this company was really struggling and had about 3 to 6 months to live, I couldn't go and say, Caleb, hey, leave your job, right? Come across the United States, come work with us, right? Because I'd have to tell you, hey, we might not be around in 6 months. So I was forced to work with the existing people, right? And what I found is that there's a lot of underutilized human potential in companies, right? And I'm going to share with you how you can bring that out in your company, and I think you'll see that. So what happened was that was a dysfunctional company. So guess what my next job was? Guess what I attracted? More what? Dysfunctional companies, right? So I'm like, oh my gosh, here's another thing that's going to last for about 3 months. And I started to get a little bit of a reputation as helping to solve some of the biggest problems. And so I was in a strategic planning laboratory. The next opportunity I went to, I had all these things on the 7th page. I'd move it to the 2nd page. I started moving things around. Someone said, hey, can you add this in? I'd add it in. The plan over about 7 years went from 7 pages down to 5, 5 to 3, 3 to 2, and 2 to 1. Right, so this is based upon business experiences. And here's what I found out. As it went from 7 pages down to 1, the turnarounds got faster, right? And people got more engaged. And so for me, it was like a big aha moment looking at this. And here's what I can tell you is when I first put together a 1-page plan, that boat where we had 2 people rowing in the wrong direction, in about 3 months, the boat went to this, right? And there's a couple things that happen. People always ask me, like, well, what happens if someone's rowing in the boat? I said there's 2 things that happen. Number one, when your values become so strong and everyone's pushing and has a common vision and is moving forward, the people who are just sort of in the shadows, they start sticking out. They have nowhere to hide. I've had many times where the people have just left. They said, hey, this is not part for me, right? They fire themselves, right? That's one. Number 2 is it made it so clear that when you did have that conversation with them, like, hey, is this really what you're passionate about? It made that conversation so much easier, right? So this is what happened. Now this boat's going to kick that other boat's butt, right? Right? And this is in the first like 3 or 4 months. So this was a huge thing. So again, I did this for dysfunctional companies, and I have to tell you that the basics and the foundation of Lead with Purpose is this. I learned a ton in business. This woman actually was a school teacher. Her father had owned a window cover place, and they found him dead. He was watching the UCLA football game. They found him dead in his USC shirt. He had a heart attack. I know. I imagine like he's got Cheetos all over him and everything. So, but they found him dead. No succession plan. They tried to put a bunch of people in place. Finally, the board called me, and the one daughter said, "Hey, I'll stand up and I'll do it." She had no idea how to do leadership, right? So I had a ton of business experiences, but I got to tell you that the second thing is, this is me and my family. We live in Oceanside. This is in 2005, and there's a lot of hair in that picture, and it's not on my head. But I don't know. I tried to read every book I could on how to be a better husband and communicate better. I've read the Venus and Mars book and everything on how to father a successful daughter, but nothing really. There's no book or one source that really prepared me for all the quote-unquote leadership positions that I have in my family and the things that came up. And the final thing was, I was a coach for the soccer club of Oceanside for about 10 years. And I can tell you, if you ever want to test your leadership and communication skills, go coach a bunch of 8-year-old kids and manage their overzealous parents and grandparents. And I'm not saying that's any of you in the room, right? But I was basically in a leadership boot camp for about 10 years. I would get up in the morning, have all these family leadership experiences, right, with getting my kids ready for school. I'd go for many hours as I need to during the day and help a dysfunctional company. And then at night I was on the soccer fields here in Oceanside, and I was helping to coach kids. And these were fabulous experiences. But I had thousands of these happen. And here's what I found about human beings. I'm not just talking about business. Here's what I found about human beings. Number one is, we crave simple, meaningful messages, right? And this presentation will be available to you afterwards too. So crave simple, meaningful messages. Number two, people want to belong to something bigger than themselves. And they're willing to put that extra effort in if they find that. And number three is they get excited knowing that they make a difference, right? So this is the foundation of Lead with Purpose, and all the tools and best practices are based upon these experiences. So what really matters most? Remember I said everything got turned upside down back in 2005? Here's what matters most from my perspective. You still have to have a great product. You still have to be productive in making that product and have all the tools and resources. And guess what? You still need to make money. Right? I don't think you need to have the most talented people, right? I think you need to have people who are passionate about your cause, right? We all know this because we spend time ourselves at our church. We might spend 4 hours a month at our church. We don't get paid a thing. Why are we doing that? We do breast cancer awareness walks, right, where we're helping to raise money. We might spend 20 hours a month, right, doing that. Or building a shelter. We don't get paid anything. Those are people who are passionate about a cause. And here's what I learned. People who are passionate about what they're doing, they go above and beyond, right? They treat the company as if it were their own, right? And they make sure the job gets done, right? And what they do is, over time, these passionate people who want to learn to be the best they can be and deliver the best product and service, guess what they become? They become the most talented people, right? So for me, most passionate people help to hit all these other areas. So that's the Lead with Purpose story. Any questions on that? Make sense? Okay, good. Okay, so the next area we're going to go into is, I'm going to talk to you about some of the challenges that we all have today. These are today's business challenges, okay? I think these will really resonate with you. We'll do a fun couple little tests here, and we'll help you see what it looks like. Number one is, and I think I talked about this, but the option for traditional planning for most of the small businesses, number one, is extremely confusing. And I would tell you that I was one of those strategic planning vampires, right? That if I produced a binder for you and it was really thick, you got your money and you got your value out of that, right? It costs about $15,000 to $25,000, right, to do, and the folder sits on a shelf. And when I look back on all of the ones that I did, everyone said to me, Mark, that was a great week off-site. Hey, the binder's really good and everything. We'll make sure you come back next year. And I'd come back next year. And when I think back on it now, that was really the leadership team checking a box for their board of directors saying, hey, we had someone professionally come in, we paid $20,000 for it, and we have the binder, right? The binder went on the shelf, right, and started collecting dust. That's what really happened, right? So traditional planning is not available to most small business owners. Number two, we all live in a sea of information, right? Lots demanding our time and attention. So, and people are spending a lot of time trying to figure out, hey, what's most important today, right? UCSD report says we see 34 gigabytes of data goes across our eyes every single day, right? And 100,000 words pass across our eyes too. We don't read all of those words, but they're taking our attention away. And when I go into businesses, they say, hey, we have these top 28 things we're trying to accomplish. And I say, wow, that's just way too much. And what I always share with them is that when everything's important, nothing's important, right? So how do we focus on the top 3 or 5 things? That's one. So we're going to take a test here. What I'd ask you to do is on the next screen, you're going to see some circles, and they're going to be 3 different colors. They're either going to be red, yellow, or blue. And depends on what it looks like on the screen, that might be green. But what I want you to do is just put an R, a Y, and a G on your piece of paper, and I'm going to give you a chance to count them up, and I want you to tell me how many are of each color. So we got that? Here we go. Okay. So how many did you get?
6 red.
Yeah, not yellow.
Okay. Who got all 3 of them?
There's no green.
They were blue. Then they were blue. Okay, so we're going to take the test again, okay? You ready? I'm going to give you the same amount of time as I gave you the first time. All right, ready? Go. Okay, how many were there?
6, 9, and 0.
Same information. What did I do? You organize the information, right? Do you want your employees to see this every day? Or do you want them to see this, right? Merely taking the data that's there, organizing it, and then you can prioritize this too. You might put 1, 2, 3 on them, right? So we need to organize the information. That was really big when I went into a lot of these companies. Okay, a couple other things. This is from Atlassian, interruptions. There's 56 interruptions a day. Guess what? That's 1 every 8 minutes that you get interrupted. Right? You get an email, you get a tweet, you get a LinkedIn thing, right? Someone calls you, etc. Who here does work in a business where they need to get into a creative state of mind? You do. How long does it take you to get into a creative state of mind?
Stay in it. The creative state of mind can be in 2 minutes, but to get it where it's hitting paper,
right,
and uninterrupted, that's 20 minutes.
Right. So on average, it's like 15, 20 minutes for you to get into this creative state of mind. Guess what? If you're interrupted every 8 minutes, do you ever get there? Right? So it's really important that we defend our people's time and attention, and we help them see those things that are most important. Right? They found out that 80% of these interruptions are not needed. Right? Really unimportant. Okay? And they say it takes you about 2 hours to recover from getting back on there. Go ahead.
Those are external interruptions. I also deal with internal interruptions, like, oh yeah, maybe I am hungry. No, but off I go on my own interruptions.
Right. So the recent studies that have been done on the millennial generation is that they interrupt themselves, and it's like a Pavlovian thing where they get interrupted, and that's one of them, internal interruptions. Thank you for adding that. So we're going to take another test here, all right? And what I'd ask you to do is just flip over one of the pieces of paper that I gave you. And you're not going to start yet, so let me explain this to you. What we're going to do is I'm giving you 2 different tasks, okay? And the first test we're going to take is I'm going to have you write multitasking is extremely efficient. Don't start yet. Cheaters. I'm just kidding. So multitasking is extremely efficient. Then the second task, after you write that, you're going to write the numbers 1 through 32. You're going to write every single one of them out. I'm going to time you, right? And so look up. We'll have a timer right here. When you're done with it, just write down what your number is. So let me get the, because the iPhone does everything, right? Let's do the stopwatch. Okay, you ready? Does everyone understand what they're doing? Okay. Ready? Go. Okay, 20 seconds. Thirty seconds. 35. 40. 45. 50. Okay, is everyone done? Okay, good. Now we're going to take the test again. But this time what you're going to do is you're going to go between the two tasks. So you're going to go M1, U2, all right? And then look up again, and we'll see how you do. Ready? Go. Thirty seconds. 40. 50. 1 minute. Minute 10. 20. 30. 35. Okay, good. So it looks like everyone's pretty much done. Who wants to share the results? First and second, go ahead.
30 and 55.
Okay, who else?
I've just proven that task 1 is incorrect.
Very good. What were you?
I'm just going to say it was so stressful that I'd probably take like a 10-minute break. I find that sometimes when I'm working at something that's like really stressing me out,
Right.
after I reward myself with like 20 minutes.
Right. So let me ask you this question. Okay, go ahead. Yes.
The thing I notice is I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. So here's the thing. How young could we write a sentence? How old were we when we could write a sentence?
5, 4.
How young were we could write some words or some numbers? 3. Look at you guys have been doing this for your entire life, right? And your efficiency went down, right? 30 to 60, right? These aren't creative tasks. These are tasks that we all know about, right? And here's the studies behind it. Only 2% of the people in the world can truly multitask. It's a serial connection. You're going this way on one side of the brain, then you're going the other side. And you're going this way and one side. One person did the fastest person, right? The fastest time I ever got. Someone got really smart, and they put the M and the 1 right next to each other, and the U and the 2.
That's right.
Yeah, you did too? Yeah. So like that's really smart. This right here, I'll just tell you how this affected me personally. I stopped texting and driving. I always thought, hey, look, I used to, drive a nuclear submarine. I can do everything, right? This stopped me from doing that, right? So understand it's a serial connection. So it's super important that we give people the proper tasks and they focus on the most important task, right? What if you have 3, 4, 5, 6 tasks that you have them start multitasking between? It gets even worse. Does that make sense? Okay, good. That's a fun thing if you have employees to take back to them. Hey, when you start going all over the place and thinking you're more efficient, you know you really aren't. Okay? So brand ambassadors today, your biggest brand ambassadors, a lot of stuff is being done word of mouth, right? So other clients who are on Yelp, et cetera, that say, hey, this company does really good business. They're your big brand ambassadors, but your second biggest group is employees, right? Now I want you to take the employee engagement statistics and put them on here. 70% of these people here are apathetic or in a miserable state of mind, 8 hours of their day, right? What if this is a call center that you have? What if your customer's experience, of whether they're going to have a good experience with their customer, with you or not, is based upon where the call gets routed to? Either someone who's engaged, right? Someone who's apathetic or someone who's miserable, right? So look at the old command and control style where decisions made, right? And then come anymore. Everybody in your company's got to take the reins and be able to deliver on your brand experience. Make sense? Customer expectations. How fast can you get a book from Amazon right now? What did you, were you? How? Download Kindle, right? Look at 7 years ago when I ordered a book on Amazon and I got it in 3 days, I was running around. Oh my gosh, that's so good. What if I got a book from Amazon today in 3 days? I'd probably be mad, right? You can get it on a Kindle in 60 seconds. Their vision, right? Bezos' vision was every book downloadable in every language in 60 seconds, right? So, and have you seen the 60 Minutes piece where Bezos has drones flying all over the place, right? You can get the stuff today. Like if I order it early enough in the morning, it can show up. If I want the physical book, it'll show up today if I pay an extra $5, right? So look at whether it's fair or not, your customers are having these experiences with these companies. So guess what they think about what you have? You always have it. They think you have this big warehouse, right? The Amazon warehouse. Remember that in your mind, right? Have that, right? Who orders anything from Zappos? You do? What do you order? Clothes. What's the return policy for Zappos?
I have no clue. I never returned it.
You never returned anything. That's okay. Does anyone know the return policy for Zappos?
Well, my son does it all the time, and he just returns it, no problem at all.
Right. So 365 days you're going to return the product. Who pays for the return shipping? Zappos,
Yeah.
right? I was working with a client who, for 40 years, did custom wire and cable. I'm talking about stuff that was on the Apollo 11 mission. I'm talking about stuff that's on the thing that landed on the Meteor, right? Really custom. Like this is specific things that go on heart devices, etc. Right? The same exact people who have been ordering from them for the last 40 years, the same exact people. Instead of giving them 12 weeks to make that wire, they're calling them up saying, hey, I need that thing in 4 weeks. Right? So clients are having these experiences, and I know it might not be fair to you, but guess what they think? They think you have a huge warehouse, right? And they think anything that they ship back that you should give them 365 days, and you should pay for the return shipping. Right? So just know this, customer expectations. 10 years ago, when you had a bad meal, how many people did you tell?
72.
7 to 10, right? Right? So cockroach comes in your meal 10 years ago, right? You tell 7 or 10 people, hey, I went over to Bill's restaurant. Well, I'm really good. There's a cockroach in the, right? So you got to sort of figure out what's going on. What happens today? Cockroach comes in the meal. Right? We take a picture of it. We don't even give the waitress or waiter a chance to pull it away. Take a picture of it. And we tell how many people. We tell Yelp and we tell everybody. We tell thousands of people. So you just have to be aware of this, right? And look, if you have a great community and someone does something and disparages you, your community will stand up for you and just say, hey, look, that must have been out of the ordinary. But you have to be aware of this. Every customer interaction is being Yelped or tweeted, you know, et cetera. So those are the challenges that we all live with today. So any questions on those? Those resonate? Okay, good. So let's go on to the next piece. I'm going to talk more specifically about the lead with purpose philosophy, right? And here's what I want to share with you, and here's what we learned. Our experience shows that long-term sustainable companies need the proper dose of both leadership and management. And I'm going to explain those to you right now, right? We believe that leadership has to do with thinking long-term, being strategic, talking about your purpose, talking about your vision, right? Really more heartfelt things for leadership. And management is really thinking daily, logistics, tactical, shorter term, right? And remember I started off the presentation by saying that leadership is really about your inspiring story, right? The story, the best teams. And management is about specific goals and actions, right? And look at in a big company, right? They have a president of the company, and guess what they do? They do all the leadership stuff, right? So if I'm the president of the company, I walk in and go, hey, in 10 years, we're going to be on the East Coast, and we're going to be worldwide. We're going to do all these things, right? Guess what I have sitting next to me? I have a chief operating officer who says, oh my gosh, Mark just said all these crazy things. I got to put the plan together, right? In small companies, you can't have a president and a chief operating officer. It won't sustain it, right? So one person's got to be able to deliver both leadership and management. And I can tell you that we're not really good at delivering both. Because we either feel very comfortable getting up in front of people and saying, rah, 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 follow me, but then there's no plan and we fail on the back end. Or we're really good at putting tasks and stuff together, but that doesn't really connect with people's hearts and tap into, hey, what's the difference our company makes, right? So does this make sense? Need leadership and management. This is what I saw. So if we take a look at the leadership approach that we've developed, and we'd ask you to use this on yourself. You can. I use it every single morning. I use it at the night to evaluate myself. Here's the thing. The first thing we need to do is we need to engage people, right? We need to let them know the difference that you make in the world. We need to connect for them how what they're doing today connects to that difference. You need to retain and attract those people who are passionate about what you're doing, right? So engage people, right? Once you get them excited, what are they going to say? Hey, what's my role in helping make that come true? I want to know how I can help, right? So you have all this energy, and now you want to focus it. The second thing you need to do is you need to empower people. I would ask you to focus on a top 3 things that they need to do this year, and specifically quarterly. You put a framework together that they can make decisions. I have this story from 10 years ago. I was on the phone with Verizon, and there was a $7 charge on my monthly bill that wasn't right. And I spend a couple $100 a month with them. That woman wasn't empowered to make a $7 decision after I called her. She goes, okay, great, Mr. Kohler, I see this is a real problem, so I'll be back. I was on wait for 8 minutes when she went to go ask someone. How do you think that made me feel, right? How do you think it made her feel? She couldn't make a $7 decision, right? Now, Verizon doesn't do that anymore. Great service. But you need to give people a framework in and say, hey, look, anything under $50 you get to make a decision on, or whatever your framework is, right? Ask lots of questions, right? And this is really management focused. When you empower people, I see so many presidents who want to say they're being really helpful by answering every question that gets asked them by their employees. Here's what I'd ask you to do. When they ask you a question, ask them a question back. Answer their question with a question back. Hey, what do you think we should do on this policy? Well, that's a great question. What do you think we should do? Instead of giving them the answer. You're going to start empowering people. They're going to understand how you think, right? And everything that's happening at the top will be pushed all the way down the organization. So empower people. So engage, get them excited. Number 2 is empower them. Say, hey, if you work on these things, you have the ability to work on these things. And the last thing is, carrot's better than the stick. Mm-hmm. We give people honey, right? So you have to believe in them, right? You have to recognize and reward them for their successes. You have to tell them that failure is okay and try to minimize it, and try to have it be internal and don't let the client see it, right? Encouragement doesn't mean you're always just saying, rah, 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 you're doing a great job. Encouragement also means, hey, you can do a better job, right? So this is the three-step approach that we think anybody can learn to become a better leader. Engage, like daily, I look at it and I go, hey, how am I going to engage people? How am I going to empower people, even myself? And how I'm going to keep encouraging them to walk through failure. So any questions on this? And just so you know, at the end of the day, I look at myself and I evaluate myself. I go, how did I do in each one of these three areas? Sometimes I don't do as well, and the next day I'm trying to do better. All right, so I told you that over 7 years, I took from 7 pages down to 1 page. And I'm going to share with you what the components are of the 1-page plan. Now, you have a sample in front of you. It's called Flint Ink Demo. That's a sample one that's filled out. You also have one that says Your Plan, and that's one that we're going to use. We're going to do a little, help you get down the road with your plan. But this is how it lays out. And again, using the ladder, if you put the inspiring dream at the top, we believe that your values never change, right? Just because you're in one situation doesn't mean you have integrity or don't have integrity, right? They become the sides of your ladder, right? At the top of the ladder is your brand purpose, right? This is your mission statement. This is the reason your company exists, the difference it makes in the world, right? We believe that this statement needs to be as relevant today or as relevant 50 years from now as it is today. Next one is a blue sky vision. This is 10 years out. This is just a story of what your company looks like in 10 years, right? Hey, we have we have 10 employees now, we're going to have 100 employees. Instead of having 2 million in revenue, we have 10 million in revenue. Instead of just being on the West Coast, we're on the East Coast, right? And then from that, what you do is you create a headline for it, and I'll show you how to do that. That's what the company, and a significant accomplishment. The next one is long-term goals. These are 5 years out. 3 goals to support reaching your blue sky vision. Next is annual goals. We believe there's about 7 annual goals your company should have, no more, to support reaching your long-term goals. And then quarterly goals, we believe there's 3 quarterly goals per department that support reaching your annual goals. And I will tell you, when you're at the top of the ladder, you're working more on the heart or leadership of your company. And when you're at the bottom of the ladder, you're working more on your management of the company. Does that make sense? And this is how we connect the two. Remember that study from Harvard Business Review? We don't want to have 5% of the people understanding. We want to have everyone understanding. And if you look at it, there's 3 sessions that you do. In session 1, what you do is you work on the top of the ladder, and you're working on the components that you can use to engage people, right? At the bottom of the ladder, in the second session, what you work on is the empowerment aspects. And these are the management aspects that you can use to empower people. So I know I just given you a lot of information. I'm going to stop right here because this is probably the most important slide of the entire workshop. Any questions on this? Does it make sense? Okay, good. Yes, go ahead.
Mark, how much integration is there? This looks like it's going to obviously work awesome for a large corporate structure, but what about a 5-man show, a 2-man show, the sole prop?
Yeah, so this is better. I'll just tell you, the reason this is better for 0 and startup to about 50 million in revenue is because of that story that I told you, that when you get to about 50 million in revenue, guess what? They get a chief operating officer, right? So this is actually better. The 1-page plan is actually better for smaller businesses, right? It'll work awesome. It'll work really well. I have startups using it, and I have a $110 million company that's here in Oceanside using it, but they're the anomaly. And what they do is they use it as a cover for the rest of their plan. So really good question. Works great. Any other questions on this? Okay. So now we're going to get into the workshop piece of it. We're going to actually spend some time. I'm going to share with you the different components. We're going to talk about them. And then Caleb from Goodwill came a little early, so I'm going to use his company as an example of how you would use the online tool to put it together and show you how simple it is. Okay. So here we go. Brand purpose. Okay. why do you exist, difference you make in the world, right? It's from both the employee and the customer perspective, right? When I first started off 7 years ago, I had a brand promise and I had a purpose. The purpose was more for the internal part of the company. The promise was more for the external part, right? I would tell you that the most successful ones are the ones that resonate with both your employees and your customers, okay? What is Guitar Hero's brand purpose? Who's played Guitar Hero here? Raise your hand. Yeah? What's their purpose? Why do they exist? Go ahead.
Entertainment.
Entertainment. What does it make you feel like? Right.
Or a guitar hero.
A guitar hero, right? Guitar Hero allows you to feel like what it feels like to be a rock star, right? When am I ever going to be on stage in front of 40,000 people, right? But I'm up there jamming, right, going.
When you buy a guitar.
When I buy Guitar Hero, right? Who plays NFL Madden? Right? What does it allow you to do? Feel like either the coach of a professional team or allows you to be a player, things that we're not going to be able to do. Guitar Hero allows things like this to happen. Okay? Great-grandson, grandma, maybe not a lot in common, allows them to have a connection, right? Now, Google's brand purpose has changed. I think it's pretty much the same, but they've expanded to doing driverless cars and all that type of stuff, right? But their brand purpose is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible. So here's the thing, and here's the example. If I'm an employee and I've been told that when I come to work, I'm going to help organize the world's information, and if that gets me engaged, guess what? I want to come to work every day, right? Now, just for me as a user of Google, and do they do it any better than Yahoo or anybody else? I don't know. But when I use Google, I feel like when the information comes up, that it comes up most organized for me. So they have a connection for me also. So does that make sense? Don't have two, make it one, okay? What does this company do?
It's just kids who are with terminal illnesses.
Okay, so do they provide airplane rides or do they make wishes come true? They make wishes come true, and then you ask, how do they do that? They do airplane rides, celebrity, things like that. This is a great brand. Like, this is what you should strive to be like, right? What about this?
Breast cancer.
Why is this so relevant to all of us?
We all know someone.
We all know someone, right, and is attached to it. Who would have thought 15 years ago, if you would have said, hey, in about 10 years there's going to be a bunch of NFL guys running around in October with pink stuff on. Everyone said, oh, no, I'm a big man, right? Like, this is relevant, right? If you just see the color pink, you don't need any other words anymore. If you just see the color pink, what's the first thing you think of? Right. Your logo and your colors, you have to have that with your business. That's the emotional connection you're going to have with your people, okay? So those are two really good examples of what I'd ask you to strive for when you look at your brand purpose. Now, if you look at the page that I gave you, in the upper left-hand corner is where your brand purpose goes, right? And so what I'm going to ask us to do, and for those of you who are watching online, what I'd ask you to do is we're going to spend the next 5 minutes. I want you to detail what your brand purpose is, right? The reason you exist, the difference you make in the world. And I'm going to walk around and help you. Here's what I would tell you. If you start talking about products, that's okay. I want you to keep asking yourself the question, why is that important? I can give you an example. I was working with the YWCA of San Diego. And do you know what they do? They're not the YMCA, right? They're the YWCA, right? And they're combating domestic violence, right? So they started off by saying, hey, we provide these programs and everything. And I asked, why does that matter? They said the programs we provide and the shelter that we provide women allows them to be in a safe environment, right? And I said, why is that important? We kept going up the chain. Why is that important? Well, if they're in a safe environment, we can teach them tools so we can help break the cycle of domestic violence. I said, why is that important? They go, then they transform their lives. So can you see how that we went from sort of a product and a service to transforming lives, right? So does that make sense? So that's what, if you're struggling with like what your purpose is, put your products and services and everything you do and say, what difference does that make in the world? If I weren't here or this company weren't here, what would happen, right? And try to get as high as you can. Make sense? I'll come around and help you. Yeah.
When somebody asks a question of the audience, you kind of repeat it, but that's the only thing.
Yep, thank you. Okay, good.
Sometimes I feel like I get too worried.
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay. Hey, brainstorm with yourself. If you think you're too wordy, write it all out, what it is, and then what we'll try to do is get the headline to come from those words. Okay? Right. So So why does that work? To them. Right. Good. So now you buy it, so you're getting to a point where you're providing a service that they couldn't get somewhere else. Right? You're providing a service, and that service is helping them to run the business. So you're helping the business owners run the business. That's really it. Keep working on that. That's good. Yeah, go ahead. We'll follow. That sounds good. Right. So with them saving money and getting cash back, what can they do with that? They can use it for. So if you're in a fixed budget, and you have $100 that you got to spend, right? You're going to spend, they only pay 70. You help them. You help them use, right? That's how I want you to think about what you're helping to provide. Okay. So keep it around that area. Okay. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. What do you want to hear? Sit down. Right now, most trusted family after good. So you help them get the business right. So I'm trying to really inspiring to do where we want our brand to sort of speak to our company. So you're just in there. So trusted family advocate. When you know one of your clients feels that you're trusted family advocate, what does that do? Because what it does for you. You squat on peace of mind as it relates to right. So when you come to quality, you know that you have peace of mind. In something that's like a really hard decision for a lot of people. So you would do that, right? To allow somebody to just like, so you want, yeah, you want people when they say, look, I use Qualitaire, go, they gave you peace of mind, they took care of everything, and all the things, and it's very reasonable to sure, and they given my, we got a peace of mind place, and we feel, but what do they all think? They all hear these horror stories. Sure. They're in a healthcare place, and
You say that peace of mind speaks to it more than trust. Inherently going to have peace of mind, or whatever you provide will be what you need.
right, so it's around that area.
Okay.
Both of those words somehow combine it, but not them. So, and this will come.
Sort of good. I mean, so we started off with
Yeah.
This is the product.
Yeah.
And ultimately, this is what each, if you look at a person's portfolio, like I mentioned yesterday, this is what it does, I don't know why. Another rule got that says, I promise to go to college.
Right.
Responses that actually making investments really is, it's financial quality of life, it's more people oriented, real estate in a person's portfolio, and memories.
I love, so just real quick, I love the use of memories, financial quality, spoken promises, and work in that area.
Okay.
And this will take us through, I think it's somewhere around.
Yeah.
How you doing? Okay, good.
I live in the east, I'm familiar with that, and Interruptions.
Yeah.
I think it used to be called this.
Right, yeah. So what you, I have is more really good version stuff. Because I just have to move the camera or something.
Right, kind of put that over here, so parent educate community residents.
You don't need to that's shorter, you should want to. Oh, yeah, that's a different vantage point. It's good? Okay, you got it. Yeah, left, right, up, back. It's good?
Yeah, we're gonna.
Here's the thing, just right. Take a look at it. Yep. Yes, sorry.
I went from this.
So yes, you're getting there. Now what you have to do is just have to shorten and more. You're gonna ask you to take out the things that are the least important. Because when you try to push back, the things that are important fit really stand out. So I would, everybody's position is actually a little bit down, show them.
Two people came in to the actual show, but then I had to hide it from one guy.
Okay, help me.
Couldn't see things. So I was talking to him, and said, trying to figure out what the problem was. Deleted the other link.
So, the show.
Oh, you guys doing? Good. You got one?
Well, see. Page. This page.
Oh, that's excellent. Excellent. Seriously, that's really good. Help celebrate dreams.
Can you share? I want you to share what your company is, and then what you. How you do?
Perfect. And what I ask you to do is just shorten it, and I'll show you where you can.
Good. This will come. They'll ask you a question.
I didn't. I didn't put it in.
And then I'll show you how you can do this.
Hey, Mark, you got somebody on the line here that posted a,
Oh, good. Awesome.
and so if you want to reply to them, just post it right there, you can type it right there if you want. If you want to make a comment.
Yeah. I would say, superior imaging platform. Portrait experience, I would say it's in our memories.
Would it be better for him to and then answer us all?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the comment tracker up, which means I can't throw it up there.
I'll tell you. Oh.
No, but
Should be around creating and capturing.
I went from this to that.
So here was the question online. The question online was, my company strives to provide a unique customer-focused portrait experience while delivering superior imaging products. So good. So it's too long. We're all working on these, but what I would recommend is that's really, if it's around imaging, it's around capturing and creating memories. something like that, right? The products that they have. Did you send that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so
I
much.
put your name on the bottom and I sent it.
Perfect. So does that make sense? So hey, really good shot at that. Keep working on that. It should be around that. Can you tell me what your company does, not what you came up with?
I own a travel agency,
Okay.
and so our goal is to always create memories that last a lifetime.
Right.
By helping people celebrate their dreams.
Right. So perfect. And what was your name again?
Sally.
Sally. So Sally owns a travel agency, and she could have said, hey, look, at our purpose is that we help people with their travel plans, and we help them to get the best price at the hotel, and we help to combine the package that they can go on the Caribbean cruise, right? And she kept working up with that. And I've heard you speak before, so I know you already have that. But her brand purpose is, what is it again?
To help celebrate your dreams.
To help celebrate your dreams. And that's really good. There's a more emotional connection with that versus I got you the best price on the Southwest Airlines flight, right? So it's good. Question?
Yeah, isn't that the difference between being too technical about what you do and making it emotional?
Yeah. So the question from the audience was, isn't that about being too technical about what you do instead of the emotional connection? And that is correct. What you want to do is grab that emotional connection, and then you can have products underneath you, whatever product it is, that you can say, hey, this is help to create those memories, those lifelong lasting memories.
My daily mind is so on the bottom of the ladder.
Right.
And the assignment you gave us is so at the top of the ladder.
Right.
So you are just, the how to do it is way below.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So the question was, hey, we're all so much in the day-to-day activities, and you've asked us to go step up to the top of the ladder where we're thinking, 50 years out about a statement that really represents us, right? And so, yes, I'm asking you to go through some mental gymnastics, but the most important thing for you to do is on this one-page plan, you're going to have this inspiring story, but you're also going to have what everyone needs to do today to make it come true. What we're giving you is bifocals. We're giving you bifocals so you can look really long, but then you can look short too, and you can easily tell people how what they're doing today connects up the ladder to them. One other example I use is if you're traveling down the road going 70 miles an hour, and you can do that on the 5, right, because that's not going over the speed limit. I just wanted to say that.
Close to LA, then.
Right. If you're always looking 10 feet out ahead of you, what's going to happen?
You're going to get caught.
What if if you're looking 10 feet out ahead of you, you don't look any further than 10 feet out ahead, you're going 70 miles down the road. What are you going to do?
You're gonna swerve.
You're going to hit something. What if you're always looking 3 miles out and you're not looking 10, 30, 40 feet ahead of you, 100 yards? Going to hit something too. So look at just as you drive your car, right? Think about that with your business. You have to look long, short. And that's what I found out people really struggled with. And so what this ladder is, and what's on a one-page plan, gives you by. Let me just see what the time is. Okay, so here we go. We're going to go through these, and what I'd like to do is we're going to go through values. I'm going to take you through the next pieces of the values. I can tell you that, and I'll show it to you, everything that we just talked about for doing just your brand purpose is part of the software. It asks you those questions, it gives you examples, and then you can enter the information in. I'm going to go through the rest of it right now, and then I'm going to show you where you would put your brand purpose in the software and show you how easy that is. Okay? Here we go. So principles by which, values are principles by which you guide yourself, you drive everything at your company. I love this quote by Roy Disney, right? Walt Disney's brother. When your values are clear, your decisions are easy. Kellogg's has a set of values. Again, you're working on the heart. 1982, what happened to Tylenol? In 1982, they did a what?
Recall?
Worldwide recall, right? What happened?
Cyanide.
Cyanide, right?
Tylenol afterwards.
Say that again.
Everyone loved Tylenol afterwards.
Right. So what did they do? They did a worldwide recall. Now I'm going to tell you that the board of directors in 30 minutes made the decision to do a worldwide recall. And they knew it was going to cost them $70 million back in 1982. How much is that decision today? It's at least $1 billion decision. Now they could have gone and said, hey, look it, we know these came out of the Ohio plant. So customers, could you please look at the number on the side of your Tylenol, and if it's between 932-84689 and this other number, it's okay, right? Everybody else who bought it from somewhere in a store around Ohio, what do you think would have happened? They were thinking like, right, well, one of their values was treat others like you want to be treated. So they're thinking like, hey, how would I feel as a mother, right? So they did a worldwide recall. But they were able to make that decision very quickly, right? That's $1 billion decision today at least, right? So values, right, they go on the upper part, and you can see this in the your plan where your values would go, and you can see the example too. And we won't go through and do those, but just know that we take you through how to do your values online also, right? And you see a lot of symbols, and you see a word underneath it. As what I learned was that people learn visually, and I think we all understand this. If you give someone a list of words, and 5 days later you ask them to come back and repeat those words, they're only 10% likely to remember the words. If you show them a set of symbols of those words, they're 60% likely to remember. If you show them the word and the symbol together, they're 70% likely to remember. Now, what was amazing for me was, what does like servant leader with Mother Teresa look like? Like when you go to Facebook, what do you look for? You look for the word underneath, or you look for the F, the blue F on your phone? You look for the icon, right? Right? So this is what this is called. It's called picture superiority effect, right? The word gets stored in one part of your brain, image gets stored in another part. You either pull the image first and attach the word to it, or you pull the word and you attach the image. If you look at your iPhone, that's picture superiority effect. It's all over there. You look at the desktop of any laptop, right? So that's why we use picture superiority effect, so we can instantaneously communicate an idea or a thought, okay? So blue sky vision, this is 10 years out. What does your company look like? We're still on the leadership aspects of our company. What I would recommend you do is you think and dream big. One of the greatest blue sky visions ever done was John F. Kennedy. 1961 said we'll put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. Everyone forgets that he said also that we'll bring him back home, right? So, but even after Kennedy's death in 1963, it drove the entire space mission, right? And in 1969, they landed on the moon, I believe it was July. They landed in pardon me?
July 20th.
July 20th, they landed on the moon. Before that, they had, the entire schedule was that they had moonshots every single month up until the end of the decade, right? All driven by one man's words that will put a man on the moon. Now guess what? When they made it on the moon in July 20th, they scrapped all the rest of them because the thing probably came back and was barely holding together, but they made their goal, right? So I want you to think of a vision also for your company of what you look like in 10 years.
And would you say that you're trying to stay connected to the brand purpose you've already developed?
Right.
And to finish the brand purpose first.
Right.
So that when you're doing the blue sky, it's already...
Right. For the brand purpose, the statement has to be relevant 50 years from now, but you will never finish it. One of the most famous brand purposes, Mother Teresa, love the poor. There's always going to be more poor people coming, right? There's always going to be more memories to get put together, right, long after you're gone. So the blue sky vision is 10 years out. And what I'd ask you to do is don't worry about thinking about a really succinct blue sky vision. Write a full-on description of what you're doing, and there's an article in the paper about your company and how many employees you have, right? And then from that will come a headline, right? And use that headline, right, to actually have people remember stuff, okay? So blue sky vision comes underneath here, and you can see we're starting to create a a ladder. Now, I don't talk about this on the ladder. Blue sky vision is 10 years out. What I'd ask. Oh, that's me. That's okay. So SWOT. That's okay. So SWOT is a strength, weaknesses, opportunities. And threats. I'd recommend you go through this. And again, all this stuff is online. Everyone asks us, why is SWOT leadership? I believe SWOT is leadership because strengths and weaknesses is about knowing who you are, analyzing who you are, what you're good at, and what you're not good at, right? And you'll see that the SWOT goes at the bottom of the screen right here, right? So look I'm going to stop right here. These are the leadership components of your one-page plan. And they all have a red header, and they all have the symbol of a heart next to them to help you remember that when you're looking at these things, you're looking more long-term than short-term. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay, good. So here we go. We call it 5-1-90. These are long-term goals, 5 years out, annual goals, 1 year out, and 90-day goals. And what you're going to do for each one of these different time periods is determine an action plan, identify resources that are needed, and any potential obstacles. This helps you to provide alignment in really what it's about. Really what it's about. Everyone asks me, like, hey, why do you focus on the next 90 days of a business? Why did you initially do that? And I have to tell you, it wasn't because quarterly everyone has to report to Wall Street, right, for big companies and public companies. The reason I did it was that most of the companies that I went into, they had like 90 days to live. So I had to really focus them on the next 90 days. So here's what it looks like. And you can see the headers turn to blue because now you're in the middle of going from leadership to management. We believe there's 3 5-year goals. Again, we said about 7 annual goals. And then these are 90-day goals that are at the bottom. So look on a single page, you have your entire inspiring story of the reason you exist, the difference you make in the world, the values that you hold near and dear to your heart, your 10-year vision, and then all the way down to what everyone's going to do this quarter to help make that come true. Go ahead.
Are you focusing first on your 5-year, then 1 year or 90, or 91 5?
What I do is I focus on the 5, right? And I make sure that those 5 support the blue sky vision, which is 10, okay, right? Then I figure out where we are right now, and I sort of work the 2.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I do. But it should be, you should be coming down the ladder. It should be very clear to everybody, like, hey, look, at that rung on the ladder is the same amount away as this one. If you put a rung like way high like this, people are going to go, we're not going to make that. Right? So the goals have to be SMART, and you can look up what SMART means, but it's specific, measurable, action-orientated, right, or achievable, results-driven, it has a time to it. Okay? So just make sure they're really smart and achievable, because we know that if I said right now I'm going to run a 4-minute mile, I'm not even going to start the goal. I'm not going to start running. If I said, hey, maybe I can run a 6-minute mile in 3 months, I might get there, right? So here's what we're doing. Lisa, who's in HR and finance and is working on a quarterly goal, that goal is connected to an annual goal. This is in the software. You cannot have a quarterly goal down here in these boxes unless it's connected to an annual goal. All the annual goals are connected to the long-term goal. The long-term goals support reaching your blue sky vision. Blue sky vision supports reaching your brand purpose. Does this look like a ladder to you a little bit? Right? It should. So what you're doing is taking the management piece of what she's working on that quarter, and you're connecting how it makes a difference in the world. Does that make sense? Okay, good. So the next thing is, and this is just to go over again, but really sort of drive the point home, everything in red, leadership, this is how you hire people that have your values. You do recognition and rewards, and all the things that are in red. Remember I said the first part of leadership is to engage? Use those boxes in red to say, hey, look, these are the stories I have to tell. When I start having a conversation around strive for excellence, which might be one of our values, you know, I can say, wow, you did a great job striving for excellence, you know, with that. So you start having it become part of the vocabulary, right? And then everything in blue is about management and empowering people. asked in the room is there a support? And yes, there is, and I'm going to go through what those options are for you. Everything from I want to do it on my own to we have what are called Lead with Purpose certified coaches who can be there with you side by side up until you need them. But I'll go through those now. You know, benefits, really the big benefits are happier, more engaged employees. As a leader, you start getting out of the day-to-day decision making. Everyone stops coming to you because what you've done is you've said, hey, these are the 3 things you're going to do this quarter, right? And I need you to focus on these things. And you know the framework that you can play in, right? So you get to lead the company, not be in the company, right? You get a team versus a group of individuals. We all know teams do much better job. I always say that the companies that win today, I'm going to say this a couple times, the companies that win today are the ones that make the most smart decisions the fastest. The companies that win today make the most smart decisions the fastest. Is it one person at the top making all the decisions where everything has to come up and down? Or do you have 30 people making 3 or 4 great decisions every single day? That's 120 decisions being made versus the person at the top being overloaded with every single decision. Should we buy this paper, etc., right? So get your company set up where you push decision-making down. The way you do that is use this. Everyone sees what the big picture is, but they understand what their role is in making it come true. Does that make sense? Okay. You're going to help defend your people's time and attention. This is all online. There's no thumbing through, a binder, and it's going to help you to manage change. Now, these are all fun things that are up at the top, right? But employee engagement studies find that the companies that are in the top quartile versus the bottom quartile, 22% more profitable. And it just makes sense, doesn't it? Right? Client has a great interaction with one of your employees. They're more likely to tell someone, hey, great interaction, who do you use for this? I'm going to go there. So your investment, there's a bunch of different options. Now you got to remember this. I'm trying to get this down to where businesses can do this. We have subscription plans, and these are based upon about how number of people that you want attached to the plan. So if you're just the owner of a company, for $49 a month, you can have access to this information and manage your entire company. If you want to have 4 people, right, and you can just see how the subscription level goes. So you can do this and manage it yourself, etc. Everyone says, well, hey, someone can go on and create a plan and then go off. There's no minimum, right? The value is in creating the plan, but the value is in managing change that happens all the time. You're going to set 4 goals for someone. 2 of them are going to have to move forward a month later. You're going to put 2 other ones in. They're going to get those 2 done. Right? If you're doing this in a Word document or Excel and you got to send it out to multiple people every time it changes, I did that. It was a huge waste of my time. Right? Second thing is we have basically a mini chief operating officer, we call it. Helps to hold you accountable. Now this includes the cost of any one of the plans that you have. So $475 a month. This includes for the entire year is monthly a 1-hour accountability meeting. We meet with your team or with you. How you doing on that goal? So hold you accountable and your team. Quarterly 2-hour review. How did you do? What are you going to do next? It's a Lead with Purpose certified coach, so someone's actually gone through 3 half-day sessions on how to get the most out of this plan. And if people are interested in becoming Lead with Purpose certified, we can talk about that also. And it includes the cost of a plan. So that's available. Last thing is if you want to have someone come in and do a certified coaching and come in and do 3 half-day workshops where we take your company through this, it costs $3,000. And again, it's led. And at the end of it, these are 3 half-day workshops that are a week apart. And at the end of it, you get a 1-page plan. And what's great about that is you can take the 1-page plan, you can do it on your own. You can have the coach continue to help you with the mini COO, or you can take it to someone else who you trust and say, hey, look, this is our roadmap and plan. That's what's really nice about it. So those are the different options. Now we also have FAQs and little videos online that help you with that. And a book's coming out in about 2 months. It took me about 32 months to write the thing. It takes you through this entire piece of how to do this to support you. So I'm going to wrap up here, and I'm going to, oh my gosh, I'm over. I apologize. I didn't even ask for permission to go over. I really apologize because I know your time's very valuable. let me do this. We think we're going to allow you to dream like Disney and execute like Amazon, okay, with this plan. And here's my challenge to you. It starts with you at the top. Imagine your company where everybody's on the same page and they understand the passion that you have in your heart for your company. Imagine if they all understood that. Imagine if they all understood the vision you have in your head of where the company is going to be in 10 years. How many more people would you have rowing hard in the proper direction? So think about that. And that is it. I'm available to have a conversation with you afterwards, talk to you about different options. I do have a little survey. If you could fill that out and give us some feedback on it, that would be great. And then at the end, if you feel so inclined, I'd love to get a testimonial video from you, if you could. And then for anybody who's online, my contact information is there, so you can email me or call me at that number. Don't call me in the next 5 minutes. I'm going to be here in the room. But I'd be happy to take any questions. So, hey, thank you so much. I appreciate it.